Hey there, Goa fans. Mark, aka DJ Solitaire, here with another episode of Retro Goa Explorations, episode 12. And today we're exploring yet another fantastic producer in the 90s and since Goa psychedelic trance music scene with what I think is one of his great tracks and possibly one of the less remembered ones. Today, the focus is on Man with No Name, Martin Freeland. He has a name apparently. And what a producer, what a legend. He's really one of the most formative uh, music makers in this scene. He started making, he was working in the music scene in the 1980s and developed the name Man with No Name when he produced a track around 1990 that used some samples from what is referred to as spaghetti Western movies. And the movie in question had Clint Eastwood in a character that was known as the Man with No Name, although he did have a different name in each of the three movies. And so he took that name. But there's also the sort of more related element to that title, with the virtue of the fact that this whole musical scene was more focused on the user and the user experience. It wasn't about who's making the music, it was about who's experiencing the music. And so, in the original days, the early days of the scene, it was not everybody facing one direction, facing the stage. This is stuff I've talked about in previous episodes, and I've heard Martin talk about this as well, and about how the scene has now become the kind of thing that it was actually originally meant to subvert. But so that was part of it, that let's not pay attention to who's making the music, let's just experience the music. I would go a step further and say that this offers us an opportunity to consider um, who are we beyond our name and beyond who it is that we identify as. Who are we really beyond everything that we've accumulated through our experience and through our lifetimes, and what is it that we have at core? Who are we at core? So I think there's that extra little psychedelic element in there that can be considered. But back to this great musician. He was producing tracks on a variety of labels, and that's another thing that I've pointed out before, that the same projects would release on multiple labels at the same time before things got really contractual. And as a matter of point, his great hit, Teleport, was released on a Dragonfly single, but then it came out on the first Tip compilation. That's kind of interesting. Within the space of a year, it was released on vinyl on one label and then in a compilation on another. We can also hear him in some of the great tracks by the Infinity Project, Super Booster, which is also on that first Dragonfly compilation, Brain Baka, and Alien Airport. The Man with No Name style tends to be really upbeat, with some beautiful anthemic, uplifting anthemic riffs and melodies. The melodies are catchy, they have a real hook, they're brilliantly structured, and the engineering is beyond reproach. I remember when he played at ZNA in 2017. He's played the last three editions, and the sound was massive. And he told me he hadn't mastered any of them since. He was playing all the original masters. He is a master, I'd say the master with no name. Absolutely astounding musician. And the track today is, I think, one of his less appreciated ones. I was really tossing up, which one am I going to feature? And I'm still focusing on the 94-95 season. Believe me, I will be featuring a lot more of him in both collaborations and also solo projects coming up as we move through the years. I don't know how long this series is going to keep going, but there's a lot of tracks to get through. But I wanted to focus on one of the first ones that I'd heard by him. And again, it comes from that amazing mixtape that Jay from the Odyssey Parties in Tokyo had given to me late in '94. And this is Energy Level 137. And this one came out on Phantasm. So again, just to highlight, he had music on Dragonfly, on the Tip, on Concept and Dance. I was really tempted to do Evolution, fantastic track that is also on Jay's tape, and then on Phantasm. So, you know, there's 4 labels at least at the same time. And then he would eventually sign over to Perfecto and release albums there, some killer tracks once we get to 97, 98. But Energy Level 137, could interpret that in all kinds of ways, certainly raising our energy level on the dance floor, but you know, the track is at 137 BPM. So I think that's a pretty clear indication of what kind of energy level we might be talking about. Also interesting, considering, as I've named before, that is a pretty slow BPM in 2023. And yet at this time, it was pretty standard. And as you'll hear, the track is pretty kicking and upbeat. I absolutely love this track, and it is a short one. It's kind of surprising that it's only 5.5 minutes long, but there's a lot going on here. An uplifting anthemic subject. There's lots of whooshes and up and down figurations, and it's one of those qualities I've been talking about quite a lot. And the layering is absolutely phenomenal, as is the rhythm. You're going to notice a lot of different rhythmic patterns that both work on the beat and off the beat. And several of the voices, again, sound like, well, like voices. These riffs that really sound like it's a voice that's coming from another dimension, speaking another language. So, all right, enough of my voice. Let's listen to what he's got going on in this fantastic track. Here is Man with No Name's Energy Level 137. Wonderful little spacey sound. It's sort of this wave again that's coming in and out. It's a wonderful little rhythmic pattern here. Quite upbeat. Certainly gets you moving. It's a very discreet beginning. And those hi-hats, again, that doesn't sound like a human drum kit. And then this other voice coming in. Absolutely love this pattern. And then that beat comes in. Listen how the drums interact with that. And it just starts getting a little bit more complex to them. Then, as it goes up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it just lets loose, and then the dance floor explodes. And it's very interesting. Again, this rhythmic pattern. It's simple, but it's really powerful. It adds that hypnotic quality that we get in a lot of the trance here. And there's upper stuff that's coming in. It's much more discreet. It's really kind of in the background, that it's really plays out on a big system. And we have one of those beautiful catchy riffs. Very simple, beautiful, accessible melody. And then a variation of it comes here, where it becomes a lot more sort of celebratory, and much more legato, right? Smoother, upper voicing than what's going on below. Notice how there's some other kinds of sounds that add more texture. That rhythm just keeps going. Now, this kind of effect, you know, you would hear this in clubbier music, but with harmonies that are much less effective and powerful than what's going on here. This is interesting. Notice how it's kind of a breakbeaty, 1994. And again, all these patterns, these cascading waves, which really sound massive on a big system. And all of these layers, they're playing so well together. Again, that kind of insistent quality that also has a voice-like quality. Sustained legato. And it goes up a note. So all these voices happening simultaneously. And we get that beautiful riff again. And that upper one. Structuring of the track is just brilliant. Notice how they do the breaks, like what's coming up here. The producers at this time really knew what they were doing to hold your attention, keep things going. But there's a little break, and then there's a pre-echo. I want you to keep your ears open for. Coming up right here. Now it gets a bit louder, and then a break. And then it's all heaven breaks loose. The way those drums just always come in just before the beat to bring things up again. And once again, we're all playing together well, just like all the dancers on the dance floor. Everybody's getting along. All those different voices and percussive elements and everything playing well together. That trance-like effect of that bass line, right? That message that's inherent in each riff and each line. That's one action-packed track in 5.5 minutes. A whole lot going on. As I've said there and multiple times, I mean, everything fits together beautifully in terms of the layering, right? What frequency the different melodic lines and riffs are at, and the texturing in terms of the voicing that they're given, with what kind of instrumentation, whether it's going to be more staccato, like da, 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 where it's separate, or legato, where it's fluid. So, it's got that smooth quality to it. The rhythm, and then the way the rhythm is on the beat and off the beat, and the melodies, the melodic riffs. A lot of folks have tried to emulate, and it's a form of flattery, and it's understandable that we learn things from others. But with the Man with No Name tracks, I mean, it was just who this guy was and is, and still producing phenomenal music, and still in the game. And but it was just, this is the style he was producing with, and it was so unique. He wasn't copying anybody. He's just writing and helping craft and create some really important qualities that have endured in this music for a long time. Unfortunately, some of the qualities that have not endured, like I've named those up and downs. And I think when people copy too much, as is the case quite a bit, it ends up sounding derivative. You come back here and you hear all of the elements cohesively intertwined, and it's a whole other story. So many masterpieces from this master musician, and as I said, many more to be featured in this series. But for now, I will sign off here and leave you with the complete Energy Level 137 by Man with No Name. I'm Mark, aka DJ Solitaire. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.